The legend of Pangu, the opening of heaven and earth. In the earliest primordial chaos, before the cosmos had taken shape, heaven and earth had not yet separated, and the Great Way had not yet revealed its trace. The boundless emptiness was filled with dark, hazy gray chaotic energy, stretching infinitely yet devoid of any spark of life or structure. Endless eons passed, and from nothingness came the emergence of the Great Way and the first traces of form. Deep within this primordial chaos, 3,000 primordial forces gathered vast quantities of chaotic energy over a long time, forming 3,000 eggs. Within each egg, a chaos demon god was gestating. Countless chaotic spirit cores and spirit treasures manifested of their own accord, becoming the progenitors of shared spiritual roots and treasures. Among them, the chaos demon god known as Pangu, who held the Great Way of Force, was blessed with the deepest fortune and favored by the great Tao. Across the endless chaos were 4 supreme treasures, the 36-grade chaotic azure lotus, the Pangu Fu, the creation jade butterfly, and the chaos pearl. All possessed mysterious power far exceeding that of ordinary chaotic spirit treasures. Of these, except for the chaos pearl, the other 3 were Pangu's co-born spiritual treasures. Chaos knew no years, and Pangu knew not the passage of time. After 50,000 cycles of primal convergence, Pangu's cultivation soared until he reached the realm of half a step into the Great Way. There he encountered a bottleneck, unable to progress further in cultivation. At last, he resolved to emerge from the egg. Though he was the last demon god to be born, Pangu had spent the longest time gestating, and his roots and innate gifts were extraordinary, unmatched by any other demon god. With the 3 supreme treasures upon him, Pangu emerged at his peak, and no demon god could rival him. After emerging, Pangu set foot upon the chaos azure lotus, wore the creation jade butterfly upon his head, and wielded the Pangu Fu in his hand, beginning a journey through the chaos in search of an opportunity to break through. During his travels through the void, Pangu saw that the chaos was too empty and lacking in any vitality. Though vast and infinite, there were only the 3,000 chaos demon gods besides him, a sparse and desolate realm. After reflection, Pangu understood the reason. Chaotic energy devoured all things. Only those with chaotic spirit cores or treasures, born of primordial indestructible spiritual light, and the 3,000 chaos demon gods, whose bodies were composed of chaos and therefore immune to its corrosion, could exist. Other living beings could not survive here. Thus a thought arose in Pangu's mind, to create a new heaven and earth more suitable for the growth of living beings. The idea would not be quelled. Pangu resolutely raised the Pangu Fu toward the endless chaos. "Open," he cried, and with that the mighty blade struck deep into the endless chaos. Boom! The sound of the hammer was like thunder resonating with 10,000 armies across the void. At its first descent, the chaos seethed and roiled, chaotic energy collapsed and spread outward. Far in the depths, Pangu sensed the will of the great Tao and knew he was doing what was right. This was his mission, this was why the great Tao had favored him. He was born to open heaven, creating heaven and earth was his destiny and the opportunity to prove his Tao. With deep resolve, Pangu lifted the Pangu Fu and struck again and again upon the chaos, neither fast nor slow. Every strike powerful. Boom, 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 the thunderous hammer blows rang endlessly through the void. Finally, an opening appeared, a sliver of light grew into a vast breach, within which encompassed the infinite forces of earth, fire, wind, and water. At the 49th strike, the chaos could no longer withstand and split within. Countless chaotic energies divided into 2, the pure chi of light rose upward to become the upper heaven, and the turbid chi of heaviness descended to become the great earth. From the midst of the void rose the interwoven forces of earth, water, wind, and fire, surging with great momentum. Thus, in the primordial world, heaven became round and earth square, the first formation of the cosmos. Though 50 strikes were needed to open the chaos, Pangu used only 49. Heaven and earth emerged, and the energies of earth, water, fire, and wind flowed between them. Yet all seemed predestined. Pangu could not strike a 50th blow. Meanwhile, the 3,000 chaos demon gods, born and rooted in chaos, felt the rupture and rushed toward Pangu's location. Soon after, the nascent primordial world formed. Before Pangu could stabilize its formation, the first group of demon gods attacked. These chaos demon gods drew forth their strongest treasures and struck toward the new world. Others formed shields to block Pangu's advance. Yet none could stop him. Pangu's mighty movement severed them. Blood and essence scattering across the void, even their primal energies were absorbed by the creation jade butterfly. Nonetheless, even such ferocity did not frighten the remaining chaos demon gods. For having trained to high realms, they were bold and fierce. They knew if Pangu succeeded, they would be doomed. Having consumed chaotic energy, their debts to chaos would demand their destruction. Thus they attacked with savage resolve. Amid countless battles, Pangu fought fiercely with the Pangu Fu and used the Chaos Azure Lotus to protect the emerging primordial world's chi. Though gravely injured, and even as the chaotic energies threatened to destabilize the newborn world, Pangu persevered through furious struggle, his spirit supported by the intent of the great Tao. In the end, the demon gods were nearly all defeated, their spirit treasures shattered and absorbed into the forming primordial realm. Only one chaos demon god survived by relinquishing its primal form and escaping. Pangu, though victorious, was grievously wounded, his treasures cracked and worn. Still, the primordial realm was unstable, still threatened by residual chaos. Knowing he could not pause, Pangu struck the ground with his foot. The cracked Chaos Azure Lotus shattered. Lotus petals and seeds transformed into countless fragments of spirit roots and treasures scattered across the new world to stabilize its chi. 5 large lotus leaves became the 5 primordial directional banners, creating a formation that anchored the world's 5 elemental pathways and stabilized the geomantic veins. At the center, the lotus platform became the primordial treasure of heaven and earth, refining chaotic energies into the order of the new world. The lotus stem became a weapon that subdued the remnants of chaos. At last, Pangu waved his hand and the Pangu Fu transformed into 3 sacred creation treasures: the Taiji diagram, the Pangu banner, and the Chaos Bell. The Taiji diagram fixed the interplay of earth and fire, water and wind. The Pangu banner cut away lingering chaotic chi. The Chaos Bell rang throughout space, purifying and stabilizing emptiness. With these, heaven and earth were fully established. Though badly wounded, Pangu's spirit shone clearly with the intent of the great Tao. Yet even as the primordial world stabilized, chaotic chi threatened to return. To prevent collapse, Pangu entered the world, transforming himself into an immense giant who bore heaven upon his head and stood firmly upon earth. For 18,000 years he grew in size as heaven expanded and earth stretched, until at last the world could no longer close. Exhausted and wounded, Pangu's body fused with the new cosmos, becoming part of it. His spine became the Bujo Mountains, towering steadfast. His left eye became the sun, radiating brilliant light by day. His right eye became the moon, shining gentle light by night. His hair and beard scattered into stars across the sky. His breath became spring wind and mist to nurture all life. His voice became thunder and lightning that fertilized the earth. His muscles and flesh became fertile soil. His bones and teeth became metals and gemstones buried deep within the land. His blood became surging rivers, and his sweat became rain. His hair and whiskers became forests, flowers, and grass, while his remaining essence became animals and creatures of the world. From that moment on, heaven possessed sun, moon, and stars. Earth possessed mountains, rivers, forests, and all living beings. The primordial world thus had life and form. The great merit of Pangu's creation was immense. The boundless chi of the great Tao descended in plentiful blessings. This merit was divided and cast to all corners. Some formed primordial spirits that journeyed to Kunlun Mountain. Some became 12 directions toward the Bujo Mountains. Others merged with the cosmic chi to form sacred relics that stabilized the universe. Thus the primordial world was completed, and the heavenly order was born. The Legend of the Primordial Era, Part 2, the origins of the great beings. After Pangu had split heaven and earth, shaping the cosmos with his own body, countless millennia passed, precisely 129.600 years, and the newly born primordial world began to teem with life. From the fragments of his divine body, myriad beings arose, yet the laws of heaven and earth were still unstable, the five elements were in chaos. Yin and yang unbalanced. Most living creatures of that time lacked wisdom or consciousness, existing only as instinctive forms. Only a few, those who had absorbed the most sacred chi at the dawn of creation, awakened with true intelligence. These beings, born with innate spiritual treasures and profound roots, stood at the threshold of divine cultivation. The moment they opened their eyes, their power already reached the level of quasi-sages. They were known as the primordial great beings, the first masters of heaven and earth. The birth of the first great beings. From the primordial chaos chi, the supreme Tao itself condensed into a spirit, this was Hong Jun. The ancestor of Tao, his protective treasure was a fragment of the creation jade butterfly, a remnant of the supreme chaos treasure shattered during Pangu's creation. From the mysterious yellow chi of heaven and earth, another consciousness took form, the primordial ancestor of heaven and earth, whose treasure was the heaven and earth peak, symbol of balance. From the dual forces of yin and yang chi, the ancestor of yin and yang emerged, carrying the supreme treasure Taiji diagram. These beings were born when Pangu cleaved open the chaos, fragments of the original forces of creation given form and will. But because their essence originated from the remains of shattered chaos, each carried within them karmic debt toward the new heaven and earth. In later eons, most of them would face tribulations that would erase their existence. Only Hong Jun would survive, ultimately merging himself with the great Tao to restore cosmic balance. The four divine beasts and the three clans. From the stabilizing world emerged the first mighty creatures, each ruling one of the four directions. In the west, a cluster of pure metal chi condensed into a colossal Bai-Hu. The white tiger. The moment it roared, it swallowed the life essence across thousands of miles, then fell into hibernation, becoming the ancestor of all tigers. In the north, a pool of water chi absorbed the blood essence of Pangu and took the form of Zanwu, the black tortoise, burrowing deep beneath the earth as guardian of the northern realm. In the east, within the boundless sea, the meridians of Pangu's body transformed into the Long Zhu, the dragon clan, masters of water, clouds, and storms, rulers of all scaled beings. In the south, atop the mountains of eternal fire, the essence of Pangu's fiery hair combined with flame to create the Feng Zhu. The Phoenix clan, radiant and proud, sovereign among all birds. At the center, beneath Mount Buzhou, the earthly chi coalesced with the balance of the five elements, giving birth to the Qilin Zhu, the Qilin clan, beasts of virtue and harmony, ruling over the land. Thus were born the three great clans, dragons, phoenixes, and Qilins, each ruling one domain of existence. Dragons governed the seas. Phoenixes ruled the skies. Qilins walked the earth. Together they maintained the balance of the Primordial Era. The War of the Three Clans and the First Tribulation. Though their origins were divine, greed and ambition grew among them. The Long Zhu, Feng Zhu, and Qilin Zhu began disputing the dominion of heaven and earth. Their wars raged for tens of thousands of years. Storms shattered mountains, fires scorched oceans, and the primordial veins of the earth cracked. The slaughter summoned forth a being born from chaos and resentment, Luo Hu. The demon ancestor, he embodied destruction itself, spreading malice through the three clans, turning their disputes into catastrophe. Under his influence, countless beings fell, rivers of blood flowed, even the ley lines of heaven trembled. This calamity became known as the Long Han Tribulation, the first great disaster of the cosmos. In the end, the three clans perished. The Dragon Clan was banished to the depths of the four seas, tasked with controlling rain and tide. The Phoenix Clan was sealed within the volcanic fire mountains, never again to soar freely. The Qilin Clan was bound to the land, symbolizing peace and virtue. forbidden from seeking dominion. Their downfall restored balance, yet left the world scarred, and Luo Hu's demonic seed remained. The rise of Hong Jun and the path of the Tao. In the aftermath of destruction, Hong Jun meditated upon the meaning of the tribulation. Realizing that chaos and creation were bound by the same law, he harmonized his essence with the Tao, becoming the Tao ancestor, teacher of heaven, earth, and the spirits to come. He subdued Luo Hu, who then fled into the void beyond the world, transforming into the outer abyss demon, creating the first path of demons. From that day forward, all beings who sought cultivation would face 3 trials: the thunder tribulation, the heavenly tribulation, and now the demonic tribulation born from Luo Hu's shadow. The birth of the 3 pure ones and other great beings. As time flowed, new sacred beings emerged from the remaining essence of Pangu. Upon Kunlun Mountain, 3 divine lights rose, forming the Sanqing, the 3 pure ones, the highest celestial lords of the Tao. Taiching Daoda Tianjun, the Lord of Great Virtue, later known as Taisheng Laojun, embodying wisdom and compassion. Yuqing Yuanqi Tianjun, the primordial heavenly sovereign, the source of all creation. Shangqing Lingbao Tianjun, the celestial of spiritual treasure, keeper of order and energy. At the solar star, 2 beings of pure solar flame took shape as 3-legged golden crows, Di Jun and his brother Dongwang Taiyi, sovereigns of the sun. Beneath the moon palace, 2 lunar spirits became the twin maidens Shi He and Chang Shi, embodiments of moonlight and time. In the sea of blood, from the crimson essence of Pangu's heart was born Minj, the river Styx ancestor, whose treasures were the 12-ranked scarlet lotus and the twin swords Yuantu and Abi. On Mount Buzhou, the blood essence of Pangu's 12 veins condensed into 12 powerful divine demon spirits, later called the 12 ancestral witches, founders of the Wu clan. Their names and domains were Dizhong, Lord of Space and Motion; Zhu Mang, Master of Wood and Growth; Chang Liang, Wielder of Metal and Strength; Gong Gong, God of Water and Floods; Zhu Rong, God of Fire and Flame; Tian Wu, Spirit of Wind and Sky; Chang Qi, Keeper of Thunder; He Bai, Spirit of Lightning; Zhu Juyan, Master of Time and Darkness; Shi Bishi, Spirit of Storms and Decay; Hu Tu, Goddess of Earth and Fertility; Zan Ming, Lord of Winter and Rain. These 12 ancestral witches ruled under the shadow of Pangu's will, forming the foundation of the Wu clan, the lineage of shamans and giants who upheld the law of heaven through primal strength and will. The Legend of the Primordial Era, Part 3, The War of the Wu and the Yao Clans. The Age of Stillness ended when the skies grew restless once again. From the ashes of the Dragon Han tribulation, heaven and earth prospered for many eons, the mountains healed, rivers cleared, and the Tao flowed steadily through the veins of the world. Yet balance is but the moment before change. Beneath the tranquil surface, destiny stirred. From the blazing orb of the sun, where the essence of pure yang gathered like molten gold, 2 sovereigns arose, Di Jun, radiant as dawn, and his brother Dongwang Taiyi, fierce as the heart of the sun. The brothers commanded the might of heaven's fire, and the constellations bowed before their brilliance. From their union with the essence of myriad stars was born the Yao clan, the race of celestial demons, beings of light and shadow, beauty and ferocity, blessed by heaven but burdened with pride. The Yao clan soared in number and power. They forged cities among the clouds and temples of star stone in the firmament. Birds, beasts, and spirits of heaven all answered to them. Every creature that moved beneath the sun was counted among their dominion. The brothers established the heavenly court, a kingdom of order and radiance above the mortal world. But the earth beneath remained vast and wild. There, in the heart of the land, stood Mount Buzhou, the pillar that once had been Pangu's spine, the mountain that held up the sky. At its base lived the Wu clan, descendants of the 12 ancestral witches. The Wu clan were unlike the celestial beings of heaven. They possessed neither divine aura nor ethereal beauty. Their bodies were vast, formed of flesh and bone forged from the very soil. Each beat of their hearts echoed through the mountains. Their power came not from cultivation or study, but from the raw essence of Pangu himself that flowed within their blood. While the Yao clan worshipped heaven and sought refinement, the Wu clan revered the earth and honored strength. The Yao saw themselves as the rightful heirs to heaven's throne, the Wu regarded themselves as the guardians of Pangu's will. For countless cycles they coexisted, sky and earth apart, proud and watchful. The birth of rivalry. The first rift came with the rising of the stars. Dongmang Taiyi forged a great treasure, the Chaos Bell, an echo of Pangu's own weapon, and hung it in the Palace of the Sun. Its toll commanded the constellations and the flow of celestial fire. At its ringing, all living beings looked upward and bowed. But on the ground below, Di Zhang, eldest of the 12 witches and master of space, felt the tremor of that sound shake the roots of the earth. He gathered his kin and said, "The heavens grow arrogant. The children of the sky forget the bones that hold it aloft." Zhu Rong, god of fire, flared in anger. "Let me climb the heavens and extinguish their flames with my own." Gong Gong, god of water, thundered in reply. "And I shall drown their stars, that they may remember the sea from which they rose." But Hu Tu, the Mother Earth, calmed them, her voice deep as mountains. "The world is still young. If heaven and earth clash, all living things shall perish. Let the balance hold." For a time, her words stayed the storm. Yet envy and pride are roots that burrow deep. The Yao clan, bright and immortal, looked down upon the heavy-limbed Wu. The Wu clan, bound to the soil, saw in the Yao only vanity and deceit. Whispers spread across heaven that the children of earth were beasts. Whispers spread across earth that the children of heaven were usurpers. And so destiny, patient and unyielding, prepared its blade. The gathering storm. To govern their vast dominion, Di Jun created the Zhou Tian star formation, an array of 10,000 stars bound by divine pattern. When activated, it drew power from every celestial body, giving him command over time, space, and light. Dongmang Taiyi wielded the Chaos Bell, its tone capable of splitting worlds. Together they ruled heaven with supreme might. Seeing their ascendancy, the 12 witches gathered upon Mount Buzhou. They formed a grand circle beneath the clouds, each facing a direction of the world. In the heart of their circle rose the ancient totem of Pangu, carved from stone veined with the giant's own blood. Di Zhang spoke first. "The Yao seize the skies. They name themselves rulers of heaven. Yet heaven was born from our father's breath. Shall we bow to those who forget their source?" Zhu Rong's flames flared like banners of war. "Let them burn." Hu Tu's eyes darkened with sorrow. "If you fight, the world will bleed again." But the decision had already taken root in the hearts of the 12. When the Chaos Bell tolled again, shaking mountains and stirring tides, the Wu clan answered not with prayer, but with war cries. The war of heaven and earth. Thus began the war of the Wu and the Yao clans, the greatest conflict since Pangu's death. The skies blazed with suns, the earth quaked beneath thunder. The Yao descended from heaven in legions of wings and flame, radiant beasts of impossible beauty, each bearing divine weapons forged of starlight. The Wu rose from the valleys, enormous as mountains, their roars breaking clouds. Each of the 12 ancestral witches commanded armies of elemental force. Di Zhang tore space asunder, bending distance at will. Zhu Meng made forests rise like spears. Gong Gong drowned cities beneath the sea. Zhu Rong scorched the heavens red. Tian Wu unleashed winds that screamed like beasts. Hu Tu raised walls of stone and soil to protect the weak. The world shook, the sun dimmed, the moon bled. For 10,000 years the war raged, and the very order of creation trembled. Mountains fell, oceans boiled, constellations vanished. Even the stars mourned, their light flickering as if in sorrow. The fall of the Titans. At last, the two mightiest forces met, Dongmang Taiyi with the Chaos Bell, and Di Zhang bearing the totem of Pangu. Their clash split heaven's dome, and soundless light engulfed all directions. The shock tore through the cosmos. Countless Yao fell from the skies, countless Wu crumbled into dust. In the end, Dongwang Taiyi struck down Di Zhang. Yet his own body was broken. The chaos bell shattered, and its fragments fell to the mortal world, later becoming sacred relics. Di Jun, stricken by grief, unleashed the Zhou Tian star formation, imprisoning the remaining Wu within its luminous cage. But before the final blow could fall, Hu too, moved by compassion, transformed herself into the spirit of the earth, merging with the world to contain the destruction. Her sacrifice ended the war, and ended the age of the Wu clan. The heavens cleared, silence followed. Aftermath, the waning of gods. The Yao clan, though victorious, was gravely weakened. Di Jun and Dongwang Taiyi withdrew into seclusion within the Sun Palace. Their brilliance forever dimmed, the Wu clan faded into legend, their souls merging with the mountains, rivers, and storms, guardians unseen but eternal. Thus concluded the War of Heaven and Earth, known to later generations as the Lich War. For both clans were half god, half monster, reflections of Pangu's duality. When the dust settled, heaven and earth stood apart once more. Stable but scarred, the great Tao decreed that the age of gods had ended. Henceforth, heaven would be silent, and the mortal world would rise. The stars that once sang now whispered faintly. And in their song was the echo of two vanished races. One of fire and light. One of flesh and stone. Both born from the same creator. Both lost to the same fate. The Legend of the Primordial Era, Part 4, The Age of Mortals and the Birth of Humanity. When the war between heaven and earth ended, the world lay in solemn quiet. The skies were fractured, their edges glimmering like shards of glass. Mountains stood maimed, rivers had forgotten their courses. The sea churned endlessly, reflecting the crimson stain of a wounded sun. For 10,000 years, rain did not fall. For 10,000 more, the ground did not breathe. The great Tao withdrew its voice, and silence reigned, the stillness after gods have wept. Yet amid the ruin, life endured, seeds hidden in ash sprouted once more. And from the mist of rebirth came new spirits. Timid but persistent, the divine races had perished or retreated, leaving the world untended. It was then that Nuwa, daughter of Pangu's lingering will, rose from the dust. The awakening of Nuwa. Nuwa wandered through the wasteland of creation, barefoot upon the bones of mountains, her hair a river of starlight. Her eyes saw sorrow in all things, birds with broken wings, beasts without shelter, skies without song. She felt the pulse of the earth beneath her feet, faint but alive, and wept for its pain. Her tears became clear pools, the first lakes of the new world. From them she saw her reflection and understood that she was both part of the earth and apart from it. In that moment, compassion awoke within her heart. She gathered clay from the yellow river and shaped it with gentle fingers. From her breath came warmth, from her tears, spirit. The clay trembled, stood upright, and looked back at her with curious eyes. Thus was born the first human. Nuwa laughed, the first sound of joy since the dawn of time, and began shaping more. Some she molded carefully, others she made by dipping a reed in mud and sprinkling droplets across the ground. Each droplet became a person, humble but alive. Unlike gods, humans were small, weak, and bound to the earth. Yet their eyes carried reflection, and their hearts could dream. They built fires, sang beneath the moon, and feared the storms. Yet in that fear grew reverence. They were fragile, but within them flickered something even the Immortals lacked, hope. The shattered sky. But the world remained broken. One day, as Nuwa walked among her children, the heavens above cracked anew. The celestial dome, wounded from the war, began to crumble. Stars fell like embers, firestorms raged, and floods rose from the four seas. Mountains collapsed, and chaos threatened to consume all that had just begun. The humans cried out to Nuwa, their voices small but pure. Hearing them, she ascended Mount Bujo, which now leaned crooked and fractured, its peak piercing the remnants of the firmament. There she saw the gaping wound in the sky, a rift through which poured both heavenly fire and the icy breath of void. She knew that if it spread, the The world would be devoured. So she vowed to mend it. The 5 colored stones. For 9 days and nights, Nuwa searched across heaven and earth. In the farthest reaches of the firmament she found the 5 colored stones. Remnants of chaos infused with the essence of Pangu's creation. They shone in hues of crimson, azure, white, black, and gold, the colors of the 5 elements. She kindled the fires of the sacred volcanoes and melted the stones with her divine flame. Rivers hissed to steam, and winds bowed in reverence. With bare hands, she lifted the molten essence and pressed it against the wounds of the sky. The first touch seared her flesh, the second burned her soul. But she continued, singing softly as she worked, a song of life and balance. A hymn older than light. At last, after 36,500 stones, the rift was sealed, the skies ceased their trembling, and rain returned to wash the scars of the earth. The final stone, a single piece that slipped from her weary grasp, fell upon Mount Huashan, where it cooled over ages of starlight. In time, it would awaken as the stone monkey, Sun Wukong, the mischievous echo of heaven's rebellion yet to come. The pillars of heaven. But Nuwa's task was not yet done. The pillar that held the heavens, once formed from Pangu's spine, had shattered in the war when Gong Gong, the god of water, had struck it in wrath. The world tilted, the sky drooped toward the northwest, and rivers rushed toward the east. Nuwa took the legs of a colossal turtle that lived at the edge of the cosmos and set them as the new pillars of heaven, 4 vast columns that upheld the sky's corners. Thus the heavens were lifted again, though forever slanted, and to this day, the rivers still flow eastward, and the stars still drift to the west. With this, the harmony of the world was restored. The rise of humanity. Peace returned, seasons began to turn, from the loam of the world rose forests and plains, beasts multiplied, and humankind spread across the lands. They learned to build shelter, to weave, to plant seeds, to hunt and to love. Nuwa watched them from afar, proud and wistful. She knew that they would suffer hunger, sickness, and death, yet within their frailty lay boundless courage. They would stumble, yet rise again. They would forget the gods, yet search for meaning among the stars. And in that searching, the great Tao would live anew. Before she departed, Nuwa spoke to her children. Heaven gave you breath, earth gave you body, and I give you spirit. You are neither gods nor beasts, but bridges between both. Honor the world, and you shall thrive. Defy it, and you shall fall. Yet even in your fall, remember, you are loved. With those words, she ascended into the heavens, her form dissolving into rainbow light. From that light were born the northern lights, the shimmer of dusk and dawn, reminders of the mother who mended the sky. The dawning of the human age. Thus ended the age of gods and began the age of mortals. The Yao Clans' palaces turned to dust. The Wu Clans' echoes faded into the stones. The last remnants of Pangu's divine will float into humanity, small, fragile, and mortal, yet radiant with the same spark that had once shaped the cosmos. Heaven, now whole, looked down in silence. Earth, now healed, cradled its children tenderly. And in the heart of every human, faint but eternal, the pulse of creation still beat. The echo of Pangu's breath. The whisper of Nuwa's song. The promise that even in darkness, life would rise again. The legend of the Primordial Era, Part 5, The Age of Kings and Immortals. When Nuwa's light faded into the heavens, the world was at peace. The sky stood firm once more, upheld by the pillars she had set. The rivers sang again, threading through valleys that had forgotten water. Forests grew where ashes had lain, and the wind carried scents of birth rather than ruin. Yet peace is a garden that must be tended. The humans, though alive, were unlearned. They could speak but not record, build but not plan, love but not remember. Their songs were fleeting, their knowledge lost with each passing generation. They gathered around fires and stared at the stars, wondering what stories the light was trying to tell. Heaven watched in quiet expectation. It was then that another of Pangu's children awakened, Fuxi, brother of Nuwa, born of the same divine breath. The teaching of Fuxi. Fuxi walked among the people as one of them. He listened to their laughter, their cries, and their silence. He saw them struggle to hunt, to fish, to farm, and he understood that survival alone could not fulfill the spirit that Nuwa had given them. At dusk he climbed a mountain and gazed at the night sky. The constellations shimmered with the memory of the Tao, and in their patterns he read a language older than thought, a dance of yin and yang, of balance and transformation. From this he drew the 8 trigrams, the Bagua: heaven, earth, water, fire, mountain, wind, thunder, lake. Each symbol embodied the law of the world, change in endless harmony. Fuxi descended and taught these signs to humankind. He showed them that fate was not tyranny but rhythm, that strength lay not in resistance but in understanding. From the Bagua came the first calendars, the first codes of rule, the first vision of order. He crafted strings from sinew and wood, creating the first zither, so that humans might echo the music of heaven and remember their origins in sound. He taught them how to weave nets, to fish, to tame beasts, and to live not only by instinct but by art. Thus, mankind began to rise, not in power, but in consciousness. The coming of the Immortals. As Fuxi guided humanity, heaven itself began to stir. From the lingering chi of the former ages, luminous beings were born, the Xian. The Immortals. They were neither gods nor mortals, but those who had harmonized body and spirit with the Tao. Some dwelled in the clouds, others among hidden mountains veiled by mist. They studied the patterns of the stars, the flow of rivers, the secret music within all things. They became bridges between heaven and earth, guardians of balance and keepers of forgotten truths. Fuxi communed with them, and together they established the way of cultivation, a path by which mortals could refine themselves toward harmony with the cosmos. No longer would wisdom be granted only by birth. It could now be earned. Thus, the first sages were born, men and women who, through meditation, compassion, and understanding, could glimpse eternity. Among them, legends speak of the 3 sovereigns and 5 emperors, rulers who shaped the ages to come. The reign of the sovereigns. Fuxi reigned first, the heavenly sovereign, guiding with intellect and pattern. Under his rule, men learned the laws of the sky, charted the sun and moon, and built temples aligned to the constellations. After him came Shenong, the earthly sovereign, born from the green essence of Pangu's liver. He taught humankind the art of agriculture, how to sow and reap, how to distinguish poison from medicine. He tasted hundreds of herbs, suffering their bitterness so that others might live. When he found a plant that cured pain, he smiled, saying, "Suffering gives birth to compassion." Then came the human sovereign, who taught writing, governance, and ritual, binding communities not by fear but by shared purpose. He reminded mankind that order was not a chain but a rhythm, the same pulse that beat through the stars. From their teachings came civilization, cities of stone and clay, markets humming with trade, songs sung not to survive but to celebrate. The twilight of the gods. Yet the Immortals, seeing this new fire of humanity, felt the slow dimming of their own. For each human who found balance within, a star in the celestial realm flickered faintly, as though heaven itself were giving its light to earth. Some Immortals accepted this as the will of the Tao, others resisted, believing that mortals should remain beneath them. The most prideful withdrew to distant realms, forming the first celestial courts, where they sought to preserve their divine essence through ritual and alchemy. It was the beginning of a new tension, not of war, but of distance. The gods no longer walked among men, and men, in forgetting their makers, began to imagine new ones. Still, a few Immortals lingered. They walked as sages and poets, wanderers with eyes that saw both time and eternity. They whispered to kings, taught artisans, and reminded humanity that the Tao was not a temple nor a scroll, but the silence between breaths. The Golden Age. 1,000 generations passed. Under the guidance of heaven, earth, and humanity, balance reigned. Rivers ran clear, harvests were bountiful, the seasons kept their rhythm. In those days, mortals and immortals lived side by side, and the arts of cultivation, Music, medicine, and divination flourished. The world glowed with quiet brilliance, the Golden Age, when the Tao was close and dreams were clear. But all golden ages must fade. For perfection invites motion, and motion stirs change. As the cycles turned, pride once again took root in mortal hearts. Kings began to see themselves as gods. Sages turned their knowledge to ambition. The Immortals, weary and distant, no longer watched as closely. And deep beneath the earth, where ancient Qi still slumbered, the remnants of old chaos began to stir, the breath of Pangu's shadow. Restless once more. The turning of the cycle. The great Tao, eternal and impartial, looked upon the world and smiled its inscrutable smile. Creation and destruction were but inhalation and exhalation, the rhythm that sustains all things. Humanity had risen from clay and found wisdom, now it would face the trial of its own making. New heroes would emerge, new calamities unfold, and the heavens would once again watch the dance of fate. But for now, the world was whole. The stars glittered like memory. The earth hummed with life. And somewhere in the vastness of time, a single human child looked up at the sky. And, for the first time, dared to wonder. The Legend of the Primordial Era, Part 6, The Fall of Heaven and the Rebellion of the Immortals. For 10,000 years, heaven stood unchallenged. The celestial courts gleamed with towers of jade and bridges woven from moonlight. The Immortals walked in measured grace, their robes trailing the fragrance of starlight and incense. The Jade Emperor's throne rose above clouds sculpted from the breath of the Tao. Below, the mortal kingdoms prospered. They built temples to the gods, offered incense to the heavens, and prayed for fortune in rain and harvest. But reverence slowly turned to fear, and fear to resentment, for though heaven claimed justice, its hand grew heavy. The edicts of the gods became law. Storms fell upon those who disobeyed, drought punished those who forgot their offerings. Mortals, once the children of Nuwa, became subjects bound by celestial decree. In the shadow of heaven's radiance, discontent began to burn like an unseen flame. The seeds of defiance. Among the Immortals themselves, unrest took root. Some, weary of eternal ritual, looked down upon the world of men and saw beauty in their brief lives, in laughter that defied sorrow, in art born of impermanence. Others, proud and jealous, envied mortal freedom. They whispered that the Jade Emperor's rule had grown stale, that heaven had become a prison gilded in its own perfection. One such immortal was Taiyi Zhenren, once a star of the eastern sky. He was a scholar of the Tao, but also a dreamer who questioned the order of things. If the Tao is change, he said, then even heaven must learn to fall. Another was Philion, lord of the winds, swift and cunning. We serve the Jade Emperor. He mocked, but who serves us? And in the dark valleys of the lower sky, where thunder sleeps between storms, there stirred a being born from a shard of Pangu's resentment, the demon star. Spirit of rebellion, clothed in fire and shadow. To mortals it would one day be known by many names, trickster, sage, monkey, but its essence was older than either sin or wisdom. From this spirit's laughter began the whisper of war. The banquet of immortals. It began, as great downfalls often do, with celebration. On the eve of heaven's 50,000th cycle, the Jade Emperor summoned all celestial beings to the Peach Banquet, a festival of immortality. The gardens of the Queen Mother of the West blossomed with the fruits of eternity. Rivers of golden wine flowed, and music woven from the size of stars filled the air. The Immortals feasted beneath lanterns brighter than the sun, yet beneath their laughter lurked envy, weariness, and the slow corrosion of eternity. Philion leaned toward Taiyi and whispered, "Look around, they dance, yet none remember why." Taiyi's eyes dimmed with sorrow. "When the gods forget wonder," he murmured, "they are already dying." High above them, the demon star blazed, unseen by most, a dark flame against the celestial vault. That night, a storm rose from beyond the edge of heaven. The wind tore through the gardens, lightning clawed the towers of gold. The celestial army rushed to arms. But the heavens themselves seemed to rebel. The peach trees, ancient and wise, wept sap like blood. When the storm cleared, one of the celestial gates lay shattered, its guardian slain. Upon its broken arch was written a single phrase, carved by lightning. Change is the breath of the Tao. The Great Uprising. Panic swept through heaven. The Jade Emperor demanded the culprit. But no immortal confessed. Instead, whispers spread that the Tao itself had turned its face. Taiyi vanished into the mortal realm. Felion fled to the northern winds. The demon star fell to earth. Wrapped in flame, the first meteor seen by humankind. From the ashes of that fall rose new voices. Some mortals began to dream of gods who bled, of heaven toppled, of freedom from fate. Others, seeing omens in the sky, took up arms against temples and idols. Thus began the heavenly rebellion, not of armies but of belief. The immortals who sided with change descended to the mortal world, teaching forbidden arts, how to summon storms, bend chi, and forge talismans from thought. The loyalists of heaven struck back, burning forests, damming rivers, and sealing mountains where rebels hid. The world trembled between two truths, that order brings peace, and that peace can be a cage. The fall of the Jade Emperor. After 1,000 years of strife, the demon star returned, no longer a formless spirit but a being of will and laughter. It strode through the smoke of battle, unafraid, defiant, its eyes reflected both sun and abyss. When the armies of heaven surrounded him, he merely bowed and said, "I was born from the crack in your perfection." His name, forgotten by time, carried the echo of all rebellion, the voice that asks why when told to kneel. The final battle raged in the palace of the Jade Emperor. Lightning tore through its domes, divine banners burned. The Jade Emperor called upon the laws of creation themselves. But the laws hesitated, for even they had grown weary of obedience. At last, as thunder rolled like drums, the throne of heaven cracked. The Emperor vanished into the upper void, neither slain nor alive, his crown falling through the clouds like a dying star. The rebellion had not destroyed heaven, it had unmade it. The aftermath. For a time, chaos reigned. Without the Jade Emperor, the celestial courts dissolved, the immortals scattered, some choosing to live among mortals, others retreating into the far reaches of the cosmos. Mountains awoke as spirits, oceans dreamed again. The line between God and man blurred. Cultivation spread like wildfire, as mortals sought to ascend, to claim the heavens left empty. But from the silence of the void came a voice neither harsh nor kind. The Tao is not a throne to sit upon. It is the path itself. The storm ceased. The world breathed. A new heaven began to form, not of gold and command, but of balance and becoming. The immortals who survived became wanderers, teachers, guardians, or exiles. Some built sects upon mountaintops, others vanished into myths. And the demon star, its task fulfilled, disappeared into legend, waiting for another age to call it by a new name. Epilogue: the turning sky. The heavens never truly fell, nor did they truly rise. They only changed, as all things must. The old gods faded into memory, but their essence lived on in every act of courage, in every question that dared to challenge the stars. Humanity, now aware of its own power, looked upward not in fear, but in wonder. The sky, cracked but whole, watched in quiet approval. The earth, scarred but alive, whispered through the roots of trees. And the Tao, infinite, impartial, eternal, smiled unseen. For its greatest creation had learned its greatest lesson. That even heaven must bow to change. The Legend of the Primordial Era, Part 7. The Rebirth of the Celestial Order and the Journey West. When the throne of the Jade Emperor fell silent, 1,000 years of twilight followed. Heaven had lost its crown, and earth had lost its awe. The stars dimmed, yet they did not die, they wandered like pilgrims seeking a home. From this hush rose new voices, quieter, wiser. The age of roaring gods gave way to an age of teachers. The immortals who survived the rebellion turned their backs on conquest and sought understanding instead. They became hermits, poets, wanderers who built temples not of marble but of thought. Among them, 3 paths began to form. The way of Tao, following the rhythm of heaven and earth. The way of Fa. Forging laws and arts to refine the spirit. And the way of heart. Born of compassion for all beings. These would one day be known as Taoism, Confucianism, and Buddhism, though in that dawn they were but 3 songs carried on the same wind. The return of order. From the fragments of the shattered celestial court, balance slowly re-emerged. Not by decree, but by harmony. The Immortals convened upon Mount Kunlun, where the mists of eternity still clung to the stones. There they built the Hall of the 3 Purities, not as a palace but as a sanctuary. The 3 Pure Ones, Yuqing, Shangqing, and Taiqing, took their seats once more, not as rulers, but as guardians of balance. They looked upon the mortal realm and said, "Let heaven no longer command the earth, nor earth challenge the sky. Let them reflect each other as moon and tide." So the new heaven was born, unseen, unspoken, yet felt in the quiet harmony between storm and calm, death and birth, dusk and dawn. The journey west. Far to the west, beyond the deserts where the wind sang in forgotten tongues, a new voice began to whisper, a voice of mercy. From the endless contemplation of the void arose Tathagata, the Buddha, who saw the suffering of all beings and vowed to end it not by might, but by awakening. He spoke of the middle path, of desire tamed by understanding, of freedom found through compassion. His words crossed mountains and oceans, reaching even the immortal lands. The Taoists listened and nodded, for they heard their own truth reflected. The sages of the East saw that wisdom had many faces, and that all paths curved toward the same horizon. In time, the Buddha's disciples journeyed eastward, bringing with them scrolls of gold and sutras of moonlight. And in a later age, when heaven once again grew proud, a single monk, Xuanzing, would retrace their steps westward, seeking not power but enlightenment. With him would travel 3 guardians, a white dragon, a fallen pig, and the reborn sun Wukong, the laughing echo of the demon star that once shattered heaven. Thus the rebellion of gods became the pilgrimage of souls, a journey from ignorance to insight, from chaos to compassion. The weaving of fates. As the centuries unfolded, mortals wove new myths upon the old. The gods became symbols, the symbols became lessons, and the lessons became stories told to children beneath the same stars that had once judged their ancestors. Temples rose not as thrones, but as mirrors for the spirit. The Tao taught that all things return to simplicity. The Buddha taught that all things awaken through kindness. The scholars taught that harmony among men is harmony with heaven. And so, the great Tao revealed its deepest secret, that enlightenment was never in the heavens above, but in the heart within. The closing of the circle. Ages turned, empires rose and fell like tides. The names of gods faded, yet their echoes shaped the dreams of poets and emperors alike. In the quiet between worlds, the 3 Pure Ones watched and smiled. The Buddha meditated upon a lotus of light. And far below, humanity continued its ceaseless striving, building, breaking, loving, learning. At last, heaven and earth understood each other. The Tao was not a rule but a rhythm, not a path to follow, but the ground beneath every step. The story that began with Pangu's axe and Nuwa's tears ended not with conquest, but with comprehension. For the purpose of all creation was not eternity, but awakening. Epilogue, the ever-turning sky. Night falls once more upon the boundless world. The stars shimmer like the memories of all who have ever dreamed. Somewhere, a child listens to an elder recount the tale of how heaven was opened, how the world was mended, and how mortals learned to be divine by being human. The child looks up, eyes wide, and whispers, "Will the story ever end?" The elder smiles, tracing a spiral in the dust. "No, little one, it will only begin again." And far above them, unseen, the great Tao breathes. The same breath that first stirred within the cosmic egg. The same breath that will one day wake the stars anew. The Legend of the Primordial Era, Part 8, The Silent Tao. Before the first breath of Pangu, there was only stillness. After the last word of the sages, there is stillness once more. Between those silences lies everything that has ever existed, the laughter of gods, the sorrow of worlds, The heartbeat of humanity. The Tao neither began nor ended with creation, it merely changed its shape. Once it was chaos, then light, then flesh, then thought. Now it is the quiet understanding that passes from one soul to another when words fall away. The breath of the infinite. In the depths of the cosmos, stars drift like embers in a sleeping fire. Each one remembers, faintly, the sound of Pangu's axe, the echo that split being from nothingness. Each one burns with that same yearning to illuminate the void. Planets circle suns, rivers carve the bones of mountains, hearts beat and cease and beat again. Nothing is lost, nothing is truly gained. The universe is a single breath, drawn in and released, forever. And when that breath stills, the Tao remains, patient, unjudging, endless. The river of memory. All ages flow together. The age of gods, when might was innocence. The age of mortals, when weakness became wisdom. The age of kings and immortals, when pride learned humility. And this age, ours, when silence has become the truest teacher. Nuwa's hands still mold the clay of every newborn face. Fuxi's symbols still spin unseen in the code of every storm. The echoes of the 12 witches rumble in the thunder. The sigh of the Buddha drifts through falling rain. And in every question whispered into the night, why are we here? Hong Jun's shadow smiles. Each myth was never a history, but a mirror. Each god, a reflection of what we might become when we remember that we were never separate from heaven at all. The quiet lesson. Once, heaven ruled by command. Then earth rose by defiance. Now they meet in understanding. The Tao has no throne, no temple, no scripture. It is the rhythm between heartbeats, the pause between notes, the space between stars. It speaks in every act of kindness, every moment of awe, every silence shared without fear. He who listens hears it. She who breathes feels it. They who forget themselves become it. And when the last tale is told, when the fires burn low and the storyteller closes his eyes, the Tao will whisper, as it always has, I am the space in which stories arise. I am the silence that remains when they are done. Epilogue, the circle without end. Far beyond the edges of time, the egg of chaos stirs again. Within it, something vast dreams, not of power, nor perfection, but of possibility. Perhaps it is Pangu once more, sleeping in the dark. Perhaps it is every soul, gathering courage for another dawn. The stars lean closer, listening. The cosmos holds its breath. And in that sacred pause, that heartbeat between endings and beginnings, the Tao smiles. For creation was never a single act. It is the eternal play of awareness discovering itself. And so, the tale returns to where it began. Silence before sound, darkness before light. Emptiness that is not void, but infinite potential. The Tao rests, waiting to dream again.